Let me explain. You see, she's been constantly played. She gave her heart to every man who said they'd be together forever starting that day, and not knowing that their words would be as meaningless as the actions they would take to get past first base. Then as soon as they left, she would be left with only a trace of where they laid. She would head to the bathroom to wipe the remains of makeup smudged from the tears running down her face. But she would always laugh. She would laugh at her pain. Because growing up, her mother told her that you should never let a man see you cry. So every time she was hurt, she would wipe off the old makeup along with the tears under her eyes. And she would put the lipstick to her lips, and every time she did this, part of who she was started to die. With her last boyfriend, she always joked about getting married and giving him her last name. Forever, last name, marriage, heart. As strong of a character as she would be if all of this was put together, for some reason her past kept breaking her apart. But through it all, she continued to laugh through her pain. Although she became a lower self-esteem woman who laughs at her pain, she's the type of woman who is hard to love because her smile suggests that her soul has a lot to explain. And as much as I would like to contest that she is not easily broken, her life could be summarized by the phrase, "about last night." She was missing a heart, someone's heart. Let me explain. Each time she slept in another man's arms, she would spill her heart out, but none of them would listen. They would acknowledge her speaking, but they would give her short replies. So she would roll over and her face would start to turn red and her cheeks would start to glisten. She would close her eyes hoping that she didn't just fall for another man who said he was different. But after so long, she became insecure. She was a grown little woman because her heart never matured. And as many times as she tried to have sex to cover up the regrets of her life, she could never find enough pleasure to make the wrongs these men were doing feel right. I mean, it's bad when you wake up next to someone you don't know. And it's worse when every man she lays down with, she expects not to leave when she says please and begs them not to go. Hoping that they'll have enough courage to stay and lay back down, saying, "I'm not going anywhere. Because God took the time to make you just for me." And I bet she thought that sounded good. Well, so did she. But instead, she was left with the famous line of all time, "I have somewhere else to be." Surely he doesn't mean he has a prior obligation or appointment, but rather that he feels a need to dodge her insecurities and contribute to instability. When he looks at her, he sees nothing, let alone peace and tranquility, nor till death do them part. You would think that by now she would realize none of their actions meant sticking around because they wanted more than just sex, but instead her problems became more and more deeper than the next. So every night, she would cry herself to sleep. You see, she was active during the day, but she was really a hopelessly romantic person, and it didn't hit her until she was sleeping alone in her bed every night. She even tried the friends with benefits, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't get rid of it. The feeling, of course. You know, the feeling of getting sick and tired of people taking from you bit by bit. It's time we either start making future plans or making us legit, because I don't get how you could lay down with someone and get up never feeling shit. And it was at that moment that she realized she was tired. Really tired of pretending to be okay. Laughing at her pain just to make it through the day. Hoping that somehow, some way, if she kept being strong and masking how she really felt, that somebody would come along. She stopped caring. She stopped smiling. She didn't care to be happy anymore. So she broke down and decided from this point on that the way men did her, she would do every man exactly the same. Because that's the only way she knew how to cope with the pain. Heartless, some men called her. And I wonder why that is. Because now she thinks like a man. She feels no pain. The last thing she wrote in her diary. I wish somebody would have warned me that giving every bit of yourself to a person is a mistake. Especially when you will end up like me. Being in love with the idea of love, so you go after it. Blinded by the idea of someone who could love you forever. But instead, you're met with a tragic fate. So what happens when a good man finds a broken woman who has nothing left to give except the experience of pain that she's felt for so many years? It's funny how life works, right? Don't allow your hardships to dictate who you are or who you become.